Good morning, it's Tim Pohanka. We're here with the Fredericksburg Strong episode, and this is going to be a very special one because we're going to talk about something I think we all may have on our minds a little bit of mental health. I've got with me Kathleen Pesolano. She is the Executive Director of Mental Health America of Fredericksburg. Welcome to Fredericksburg Strong.
Thank you for having me.
So there is so many things to talk about right now, and I think I want to start just generally talking about what it is your organization does. So when we look at mental health, we always have that thought process as, oh my God, I'm going to a psychiatrist and I'm going to, be given a lot of drugs. That's not really how mental health first starts, correct?
It isn't, absolutely. And it's one of the most confusing kind of healthcare systems. We seem to understand going to a primary care doctor to get checked out, and then we go refer to specialists. But when we get into the mental health care, people get confused because they want to see a psychiatrist.
But are they confused? Or are they embarrassed?
No, a lot of times it's confusion because the only providers or helpers that they hear about are psychiatrists. So they think that's who does all the work.
But do you think that people are worried about the impression that they're going to get about themselves at times?
Oh, they do. And reaching out, absolutely.
And
yes.
I think that part is the part that, when you look at that, but what you do is, what they don't understand is they're not immediately reaching out to some, mystical, insane asylum where they could be trapped. It's not like that.
It's not. And that's part of our mission is to erase the stigma associated with mental health and getting help. So our programs are all about helping individuals to navigate that system, but also to understand what's going to happen. So to understand, if I'm struggling with this, who can help? If I reach out for that help, what will that look like? What kind of things will they ask me about? What will the office be like? What things can I expect? And so they kind of prepare themselves before they go and actually meet with a psychologist, a counselor, or a therapist by talking it through with us first. And we help them to find individuals that seem to meet both their needs, but also kind of specialize in the things that they're interested in or that they need help with. So if they're struggling with grief, they've had a loss, and maybe they were doing really okay with that loss, and then the anniversary comes up, or something else triggers it, or right now what we're living in triggers that experience of loss, and they can't seem to get themselves up or moving or doing their normal things. We can help them find somebody who understands that grief, who understands those different transitions and issues that happen, who can help. And I think that's part of it is you really have to find somebody who you can be open and honest with, who you can ask those embarrassing questions. Is this normal? This is happening to me. What should I do about it? Should I be worried? Should I be more concerned about it? So that you can be upfront and get those kind of questions answered that you wouldn't necessarily just tell anybody that you're experiencing.
So when I hear you talk about it, and I want to make sure that everyone really kind of grasps this, it's not, you all aren't clinicians, you guys are not practicing psychiatrists.
Correct.
You all are not therapists.
Correct.
So you all are...
We're all about making that warm connection between people who need help and making that connection to people who can help them.
So it's almost like you're sitting there, and I don't want to overly bring it down to the basic, but it's almost like you're triaging people to the type of help that they need, because these therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists, they specialize in certain things, correct?
Correct, absolutely. And it's all about, mental health resources are very limited throughout the nation. Even here, when we have a variety of options, they're still very limited to meet the growing need that exists. So our job to be able to help them to find somebody that fits them on the first try versus calling a handful of people, getting appointments going and not being happy or not feeling like their needs are met, and then they wait another month to go see a new person. We're trying to limit that so that they're getting that help that they need right away. And we're doing the best that we can with that to help them to know what to expect too, so that they're realistic, the expectations. But they also come kind of prepared to have some of those harder conversations, and that's okay. That's the time to have those conversations and kind of find out the truths versus the myths of what you think is the case or what other people have told you about their experiences.
So when you all meet with people, your team, they're all educated. We're not talking, you have to have a degree, probably a bachelor's or even a master's degree. In what type of field do you normally look for?
Psychology, behavioral health, actually in counseling.
Okay.
We have individuals that have, more of an expertise in the counseling side, like the education side of that. Individuals who, in particular, work with particular populations. So we have a senior visitors program. So those individuals are very specialized in the needs of seniors and what they're going through and what the normal aging process looks like versus when there are things that happen that need additional help or need to be recognized as warning signs of something greater, and what can be done about that. So my staff is small. There's only the 6 of us, but we do a lot of really great work, and it's because our team brings together those specialties to be able to help the variety of things that our community needs as it comes to mental health.
So you mentioned about the size of the community and the mental health abilities in the area. And as I understand it, you really have 2 main facilities, one at HCA and one at Snowden.
Correct.
For Fredericksburg. And we're not talking big facilities there.
Right.
We're looking at probably 10 to 12 beds per facility. Is that about right? Something in that. So
it's a little larger than that. I think at both of them, some are doing some expansion work, but still, if you think about critical need, it is small for Planning District 16. How large we are.
Yeah. When you look at an example, I think we're close to 300,000 between Stafford, Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, parts of King George, parts of Caroline. Let's say if it's a total of 50.
Right.
That seems low.
It is low. Mm-hmm.
And then you look at it when you talk about them being able to go in. A lot of these people go back and forth.
Yeah.
Because they can't get this help afterwards, or they can't find the right person. They'll go from Snowden to HCA, back to Snowden, back to HCA, almost like that's their trip.
Right.
That's how difficult it is to get help in this area.
Well, and
I'm not trying to say it's a negative from the standpoint of what you do. That shows how important what you all do is, because the problem when they leave is trying to get that appointment. You get stabilized in the hospital,
right?
And then they stabilize you, which is what their goal is. They get you out of they release you because you're stable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got nowhere to go because you're waiting for an appointment. Are you waiting to find the right person? Are you going through the phone book trying to find somebody? So what you do is really provide that link. Is that right?
Right. It's all about trying to carry them over till they are actually receiving the services that they need. And it is very limited, space-wise, and for individuals, it's hard because with medication in particular, individuals, it takes a while for that to build up in their system. So to know if there's complications, to know if it actually was a good fit, it takes time. And so we kind of ride out the ups and downs with them. So we have a lot of individuals that call us and they'll talk to us, talk through what's happening, that's going on, just kind of processing, should I call my primary care doctor? Should I go to the ER? Should I, what should I do next because this is what I'm feeling? And kind of helping to connect them with, information and resources so that they know, what they're on, what they're taking, what should that look like, when do you call the doctor? Is helpful for them too because sometimes, they're like, well, they told me, it'd be a month, and so I'm just going to sit it out a month, and the things they're describing are highly, they're having an allergic reaction to it. They're having, a situation that requires immediate care, and so obviously our part of our role is to help them to understand the seriousness of what,
But that goes both ways. It's making sure that the healthcare provider understands the seriousness of what's going on. And because, again, we're not talking it's some doctor or someone over here who's just too busy, who doesn't want to talk to someone.
Right, no.
It's the fact that they're busy from, the day that the day that the door opens to the day that the door closes. And there's not enough of them in the area anyway.
Absolutely, that is the case. Because we have individuals that call us who even work in in the healthcare. They work in mental health, and they also go through the same struggles of getting an appointment and finding that appointment slot. So it's not unique to individuals. We have people that call us all the time that are moving from other states, and they've gotten here and they have what they were prescribed there, and they're transitioning here, and they were told we'll get an appointment. And it's like, well, it's not as easy as perhaps the city you lived in previously, because you may have had more options there. Here we're really looking at, these are the individuals, and you're looking at a several month wait sometimes to get a new patient appointment. So we work with them also in, how do I stay connected to my provider in Michigan or Connecticut or Florida or wherever you were from, until you can get into an appointment physically here. So not to cut off any of those, those supports or those ties. So, that's kind of part of the things that we're seeing too, is we are a very, transitory area too. So we do have people moving in, moving out, et cetera. So how do we help them also to kind of get engaged in a community that they're brand new to? So they absolutely don't know what's here. They only know what their own experiences are elsewhere, and they're trying to find those same fits here. And it's very unique. We have different things that go on here, different resources, different people that play different roles in the whole system. So helping them to kind of, I don't want to say be educated on what we do here locally, but to kind of help them to better function here too.
And when you mention it, when you think about these medications that they're being prescribed, a small shift in dosage could be detrimental.
Absolutely.
And that's a danger, and that's the dangerous thing about the healthcare industry, is that when they are on some of these medications that they need, one change in balance can have major effects on them.
Right.
And then the side effects on top of that.
Right.
How to manage the side effects to the medication that you're on. And I don't think a lot of people really realize that it's when they're reaching out for help, they're reaching out for help for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need a little help sometimes.
Right.
You mentioned right now. What type of response have you seen now with people being shut in all the time?
Couple of different things. Individuals who probably would normally be struggling and reaching out, they're kind of just hunkering down, and because they have a greater fear of the unknown of going into hospitals or getting help that way, because of fear of contracting, COVID-19. We have other individuals who have in the past have probably had mental health issues, probably a lifetime. But because they had normal routines, they had supports, they had relationships, they had the structure they needed to stabilize themselves, and they were doing fine. And now COVID comes in, and routines are out the window. The ability to connect with people who would normally be your lifelines is much more challenging, and they're having full-blown episodes that they've never experienced before, and they're like, what's happening? And their family doesn't know what's happening, because they've never seen this or experienced this side of things. And it's because all those protective factors that they had in their life have gone, and now it's been able to have a full-blown episode. And so we have individuals that call us and say, I don't know what just happened. My family doesn't know what happened. I've never experienced this, but this is what's gone on. What do I do? Because in the past, I've been able to manage it myself, and now apparently I can't. So we have a lot of individuals like that reach out that have never before gotten, professional help, but now because of the added stresses, they have to. We have, healthcare providers. They're on the front lines, and they're being strong for everybody. But burnout, emotional, outbursts, things like that can easily happen because of that constant need to hold yourself to a standard. So we have a lot of individuals who are reaching out there because they hit that brick wall and they need help, and yet I still need to be able to do my job. So what does that look like? So there's a lot of community support that's coming together, especially in the mental health field, to help provide direct services to the individuals like that without there needing to be some other formalized process, which is. It gives me such a warm feeling about here, our local area, is that we really do try to pull together and try to help each other out. And we've seen that a lot. So those are kind of some of the concerns, is even beyond this. what are we looking at? We're looking at lots of people dealing with grief, whether it's the loss of a loved one or a friend, but the loss of, our seniors, loss of experience. I didn't get to walk and graduate, loss of those friendships that they had and those experiences they were expecting, individuals' loss of jobs, loss of, the ability to make your livelihood or to do the things that you wanted to do. And so all that's going to hit the fan when we some of these fears that have kept us, in place are gone. And so there's a big, huge concern that we were already riding the wave of need and crisis before COVID ever came. And now if at the other end of this, all the individuals that have been holding it together are in need of services too, what will we do then? So we're definitely looking ahead to see what will this mean, as a larger picture for our area and for those and those limited resources.
When you think about it, the number one thing for your mental health is sleep.
Yeah.
And I can attest to it. I've had many a sleepless night worrying about the people that I work with, worrying about family, worrying about people like that. We come to work here every day, which has been probably a little bit of a break mentally, as much as it's been the cause of some of the non-sleep, right. But it also has been a break. When you look at people who you said who are constantly on, they're constantly on, whether it's the doctor, whether it's the nurse, whether it's the person at reception that's checking them in, or even just the security guard that's outside.
Right.
They're constantly on. And then you take it to some of our other essential workers. And when I think about people who are working in the grocery store,
yes,
and I think about that, there's so many different levels of stress that can go on right now. You're looking at a young kid at the grocery store. They're not immune. Right. I thought they were.
I know.
But they're not. There is so much more stress that's brought on, and that adds to it from the non-sleep and those factors. But there are things that they can do without themselves, though. They're the things that they can do, right?
Absolutely.
Short of reaching out. What are some things that they can do for themselves right now to try to help themselves out?
Absolutely. So, some of the things that individuals can do is, even though we have a lot of changes going on, is to establish routines, to whatever that looks like now. If it's, I get my morning cup of coffee and then I walk downstairs and I turn my computer on and I do X, Y, Z. Knowing what to expect helps to kind of alleviate some of that fear. The same thing can happen for your individual who's working at the grocery store, right? They get up in the morning, I eat my breakfast, I go, and they don their protective gear before they go out and check people out at the register, and they remind themselves at breaks that they're using the hand sanitizer. They say still set goals, right? Come up with something that you want to have to happen, to achieve, to not feel like everything is on the back burner until this is over. There's still some things that you can put into place that you can feel like you're working towards something. Sleep, you said, absolutely. Healthy diet, exercise, and that can just be going outside for a little bit for the breather, right? Taking deep breaths, reminding yourself to breathe, letting some of that stress out of the rest of your body. Those are all ways, reaching out to others. So it may not be, like we used to. It may not be shaking hands with somebody at the door or saying hi or whatever, but, it can be waving as you go by, somebody from window to window. It can be calling somebody, texting somebody. I have to say sometimes the brightest moment in my day sometimes is I get a text from somebody else who I wouldn't normally, we probably wouldn't even talk daily, but, and they would send it just making sure you're still okay. And it's like, it's just nice that somebody else thought of you. So I think having those kind of moments, and I feel just as good when I go out and reach to somebody else as for somebody reaching out to me. So reconnecting with somebody, checking on them. I think that all bolsters our own because it feels like we're doing something. Okay, we're making a difference, but we're also doing something to improve the situation, and I think that's what we all want to feel like we're doing. And so those can all definitely benefit and help.
So, it's funny you should say it because I've heard from family members that I haven't heard from in a long time. Who's the last person you ever call is your family, right?
Right.
And so I'm hearing from them, which is, and you're right. You get a smile when you get a phone like, oh my God, I haven't spoken to my uncle in like 5 years.
Right.
And all of a sudden, my uncles and aunts or nieces and cousins are calling. And those are all really helpful things. I'm gonna say this. I went out this weekend to do something I needed to do, and I ran into some friends of mine who happened to have been shut in the whole time. And I have never seen a group of people more interested in talking than ever before. And I understand.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a species that's designed. I mean, my son, God love him, he says he's been training for this his whole life because he's an introvert and he's happy as a pig in mud.
Right.
But we're not designed to be shut in.
No.
We're not designed to be insular. We're designed to hug. We're designed to be out there. We're designed to get that social interaction. What are your, when you start to look at it, and I know this is this is not about politics or anything, but when we look at what the cure is, the cure, is the cure to the virus potentially worse than the virus itself? Is some of the things you're seeing in mental health almost as bad as the virus itself?
I think what I'm seeing in this experience, and I thought about this morning before I even came in here, is a lot of the things that we're experiencing, those that maybe normally we aren't struggling with anxiety or depression or mood or fears. We're kind of experiencing what that life is like for individuals who have that at all times. I know, I have a family that I'm sheltering in place with. So even if we get on each other's nerves and have to go to different corners to work, I still know, that at meal times, or I still know that we're going to go play an online game all together and be goofy. But I think about, our seniors. I think about singles. I think about people who are by themselves, and, how isolating that experience is. Especially if you're in a population that's at high risk for contracting it, right?
Yeah. Imagine being in New York right now.
Yeah, so you've been told you need to stay away from people. And yet that isolation, literally your only connection to the outside world might be looking through your window, or it might be watching TV. And I have an elderly father. And so I get to hear a lot of what's on the TV because those are our conversations. And I realize, even more so how lonely and isolating that is, because you can only watch so many reruns, and watching the news go on and on, that it makes the world even a scarier place than before. So, what I feel like I'm getting to experience what that life is like for a senior, who's home alone, and that's it. They're all by themselves and they're lonely. And that's who we serve through our senior visitors program. So it's like it gave me that perspective. Or,
it's not fun.
No, it's not. It's not fun at all. And I can still think, I could walk outside. I could walk on the sidewalk, stay away from everybody, just walk, But for them, their thought is still, I can't do that because of mobility. I can't do that because I'm at such high risk. I'm more fearful of what I might catch in that moment of going outside and taking a deep breath than just staying in my home with my door closed.
And I think you hit on that. I've been talking to some people in our setting who are worried about contracting or have been around people who have. And when you start to look at it, sometimes fear overtakes, I call it vigilance, but just being cautious.
Right.
And that fear can be so overwhelming, you're not thinking straight.
No. Because
you're just so scared as to what's going on. You're letting, the things that you're doing right, whether it's washing your hands. If you've washed your hands all the time, you're keeping your social distance, you're limiting interactions, you've done the best you can.
Right.
Other than getting a bubble.
Yeah.
Getting its own, special filter and living inside of there. I think they talked about the only people, the most pristine area that just ended was a cruise ship just docked that has been at sea for 2 months, that has no cases, has had nothing on it, and they finally had to dock. So you think about it, for 2 months, they're going around going, what are we talking about? So other than those people, we're all going to be, we've all had some interaction. And unfortunately, by now, probably all know someone who's been diagnosed with it.
Correct.
But that fear, and I think the media is playing on this fear. We talk about the number of people who are hospitalized. We talk about the number of deaths. They don't really talk about the number of people who've left.
Right.
How many people are healthy? So we're buying into the fear of, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, as opposed to possibly the hope of, hey, there's something better, not something better, but there's something, there's not something as negative, I guess, is probably what, and that hurts people in these situations. I mean, because trust me, if you're around negative news all day long,
right,
you just can't help but think negative things.
Absolutely. And I worry about even that fear, because if you think about it, if they came on the news and said, you know what, it's gone, we're good, let's go back to normal, would we really be able to? Like, would we walk into the grocery store? Would we still open that door with our gloves, or what will that be like? Because I think there's still going to be that fear of, we've developed such a response. I mean, I go to the grocery store, and if I see somebody coming back down the aisle at me, man, I back out of that aisle, and I'm, you know what I mean? And so I'm almost have this aversion. Can you imagine when we go back to normal, like how hard it will be to just say, oh yes, this is great, we can all be, right next to each other in line. I have a feeling there's a lot of things that are going to carry over, because, just because it's this that's gone better, there'll be something, else. There is a lot of fear.
It's funny you should say that. I think about that, and I was in a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about the new normal. We've been through a lot of things in my short lifetime, and that have disrupted normal. We are a very short memory people.
We are.
When you think about when you think of air travel after 9/11, none of us were happy about that.
Right.
And then the rules started changing, and then it came up. Well, if someone gets up and says, "Hey, I'm taking over this plane," there's no one in the planet that's going to. What do? They're going to be like, "Okay, well, we're going to rush the guy because."
Right.
The new rules have changed.
Absolutely.
And I think the same situation may occur here. They talked about people driving to work. Well, I think people are going to, if they get back on 95, they're going to be like, oh man, this is horrendous again. I mean, driving to D.C. is easy right now. They'll remember those things, and I think we'll go back to it. But you're right about the checkout counter and that. And the part that I think is interesting to me is when I walk through a Lowe's to go get something, and you look at everyone in masks, you're losing smiles.
No, you are, yes.
And, I've seen some people do some pretty unique things where they put the clear plastic in the mask. But those smiles are actually important.
Mm-hmm.
How we interact and how we work as a species is important.
Absolutely.
So, and those are some of the things that I would say that. Now, you all are funded, though, through
donations. We are everything we offer is free programming. So we are through donations. We do fundraisers in the community. We have a little bit of locality funding that supports us for particular programs like our senior visitors or our helpline. But the majority of it just comes from the community itself. And that's kind of where, we grew out of this, all those years ago. There was a need, and the community stepped up and said, we need to do something about it. And they kind of grouped together to form, what is now Mental Health America Fredericksburg. And they still now come out and they support the efforts that we do so that we can continue to work to improve, the mental health and the mental well-being of our whole community. I mean, and it is a community effort. It's not something that one person or one office or one, can do. So it really is about working together. One of the things, if I can share something brand new that we're doing, and this is all in response to May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We're doing a Share a Smile campaign. And so what we're doing is you're able to go to our website, and you're able to request or to donate and to have a smiley face yard sign go be put in somebody else's yard.
Okay.
So kind of think of flocking, the flocking that was done for fundraising, but instead we're doing smiles, because we really are about sharing that with other people and having someone know that you're thinking of them.
So you need someone's address?
So literally, if you wanted us to send it to somebody you cared about, you could tell us, I want Joe to get this.
Now you're going to drive to their house and put in their yard
We're
sign?
going to put it starting May 1st. We'll be out you'll look for our smiley
so
faces.
So that will be you all driving out there.
We will go and put it. Now, if you'd like to come pick it up and place it yourself, you are welcome to.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, my friends, I think. But, you know what? The one thing you don't see people doing anymore is toilet papering houses.
No. I mean,
that's just flaunting wealth, right?
Absolutely. There you go. I've never been so excited as when you get your toilet paper delivery in.
So you're delivering these. So you're going to put these yard signs out there, so we could wake up one morning and May 1st and be like smiles galore.
You could. Then you'd know lots of people loved you.
That would be nice.
That would be nice to share the wealth then. But yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned about people loving people, and so I want to before we go, one of the things I think it's the hardest part in mental health, and when you're trying to get help for your family or yourselves or what's going on, is the ability to talk about it, and understanding that it's not a negative thing. It's knocking the edge off.
Right.
In some cases, it's just as easy as it's just knocking the edge off. And in so many times, you hear about so many tragedies that go on, and you always have that person go, well, we knew they were kind of different,
right?
But they never said anything.
Right.
Talking to your family, talking to your friends, it doesn't need to be a negative, right?
No, it doesn't. I mean, just asking them how they feel, and going a little deeper, because let's be honest, how's your day? Okay. How are you doing? Fine, right? We answer that without thinking, and we're doing it in passing. So if we have really had conversations with somebody and we said, I've noticed, and I always say, put it on yourself. I said, always acknowledge, I'm noticing that you're quieter than usual. I'm noticing that you're more agitated. I'm noticing, that you don't seem to enjoy the things that you liked doing before. When you bring those things, specific situations, first thing is it gives the message that you cared enough to notice, and that you really, when you ask them how they're doing, you really are asking how they're doing. You're not expecting the okay, fine, to end the conversation. You are expecting something further, and yes, it requires you to put yourself out there a little bit to say you noticed, but it kind of opens the door for the other person then to walk through and kind of have a little bit more of an open conversation, and then talk through what's happening, what their experiences are, because that normalizes it. And until we start having those conversations to kind of normalize, we'll have a lot of people who will suffer in silence, or they'll suffer until there's a tragedy. And then we wish that we could do something different. So it's all about trying to do this before that happens, when you start noticing. And during this time period, obviously, you probably could ask that question of anybody, right? I'm really noticing that, you're having difficulty concentrating. Well, some of that could be the lack of routine, or the fear of, I have to go do this afterwards, which means I have to go engage with people, or I want to do that, but I can't now. But still having the conversation, it relieves some of that pressure of that's okay, and that if there's something that someone needs help with, taking that next step. I'm always say to somebody, don't just say, well, call somebody. Kind of like help them to make that call, help them to connect to somebody. We have a lot of people that call on behalf of a friend, and they say, I'm calling for a friend, and it could be them, it could be a friend. And I just need to know more. Could you help me how to approach this, or what to say, or if I'm noticing these things, what could be happening, so that they have that information, so when they come back to the friend, they can kind of be that, liaison between them getting help. And we're all about that too. So we have people that call us who just do check-ins. Sometimes they're seniors, but there's also other individuals that say, I just needed somebody that was going to answer the phone. Thank you for answering the phone. And that's okay. And we just kind of talk about whatever is going on that day, until they get to what they want to. And sometimes that's all they wanted to do, is I just wanted somebody to hear how my day was going. And it's like, that's okay.
Well, we all need our wingman.
Yeah.
Once in a while in our lives, someone who can ride there. And I think you brought up a very interesting point. So many times in our lives, you see somebody who's just not acting the way that they were, and later you're probably wishing that you had said something.
Right.
And to your point, hey, I noticed something's different. Can you share with me what's going on?
Absolutely.
And then, it just may be a simple, hey, I'm just having a bad day. and that little bit of a release may be the cure that they need. So it is about see something, say something. It's not a negative thing.
It is, absolutely. And there's a lot of, if you feel like you would like more information, there's a lot of programs right now that are online, so you can learn virtually. Mental health first aid is a great example for individuals in the community. Kind of think of it like learning CPR, but instead for individuals that might be having a mental health crisis.
No, these are all on your website?
These are all available in the community, and you're welcome to contact us, and we can put you in contact who's running those particular programs right now. But we're all about how many individuals can we get to both stand up for mental health, right? To have these conversations, so erasing the stigma that's preventing people from reaching out for help, but also educating people, because you're much more likely to come in contact with somebody having a mental health crisis, even before all this, than you are necessarily of somebody who's having a heart attack. But we know how to handle the one, and we're afraid of the other. Mm-hmm. So this is all about empowering individuals to step up and do something when they see those situations happening, hopefully sooner than later.
Because it really sounds like we are our friends' best help.
Absolutely.
To start with, before it becomes so difficult that it is a system-wide problem or a systemic problem.
Right.
Your website?
www.mhafred, so mhaffred.org.
Okay, and I would highly encourage anyone to go out there. I think this SMILE program is awesome. What's a sign cost?
Well, we're asking for a donation, so $20 donation. You obviously can donate more if you'd like to.
Then you get more signs.
There you go. Absolutely, you can spread the wealth.
Okay, that's a great cause. I think it's great. I've enjoyed our time. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave us with, or?
The only other thing I'd like to offer is, because we do our senior visitors program, which is matching trained volunteers with seniors, and it's for companionship. So they offer an hour a week. It could be playing games. It could be going for a walk. It could just be watching TV together. But it helps them. They're in their own home still. It's helping them stay engaged to the community, to have a purpose, something to look forward to. So we are still doing that now. Obviously, right now we're virtually visiting. We have people who do window visits. So they call them up, let them know they're coming by. They wave at from window to window kind of thing. I mean, sometimes they leave little some one of us have been leaving little gel stickers for them to put on their window, so that they what I mean, something to look for. There you go. But so we have training that's virtual. So if you feel the desire to want to, or just reach out to, if you have neighbors that you haven't seen in a while, or that you're worried about that them getting their needs met, just connect with them to see if there's something you can do to help. I mean, we're all feeling a little isolated. So whatever we can do to kind of help somebody else that might be feeling pretty isolated and lonely, I think that's kind of a great time now to do that, to start those practices.
Well, thank you for all you do, Kathleen. I hope you guys have a lot of success with this promotion, and I hope that you guys are able to help us dig out from all this, and I'll get back to the not the new normal. Hopefully, we'll get back to our old normal. So,
we're hoping.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. This is another great episode of Fredericksburg Strong. I'm Tim Pohanka, and look forward to seeing you here again.